That was part of my 15 minutes of fame.
Moving up in the world. There you go. Look at you go.
I'm right behind you, dear.
Tom didn't show up, he gets the honor.
Good evening, everyone. We will open the special council meeting on Monday, June 25th. And roll call shows that all councilors but Councilor Spitz are present. Agenda review, I don't think we have any items to add. So moving on to new business. Order 18-98, order approving the fiscal year 2018-2019 municipal budget. Do you need me to read all of those things underneath it? Okay. So I'll take a motion on order 1898.
Move to approve.
Second?
All right. Sophie, do you want to do it?
I just have a brief explanation because these numbers are slightly different from what was presented during the public hearing. Those councilors who were at the Community Development Committee meeting last week understand. We received notice last week that the town's contribution to the Maine Public Employees Retirement System is going to increase starting July 1. And that made about a $16,000 difference to the entire budget. So we, as I indicated during my manager's update at the committee meeting, I went back into the capital budget, allocated $20,000 just because a round number is a whole lot easier to work with, from the downtown transit-oriented TIF district to fund a portion of the expense of the construction project planned for Myrtle Street. That everything else is as it was presented at the public hearing.
And just to be clear, that change made no impact on what we need to raise in taxes.
Absolutely, and just to be able to say that, I increased the overlay, which is just a placeholder, the $3,000 so that it would be no change to the bottom line from what was presented at town meeting, public hearing.
Great. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the budget? I didn't really give anybody much chance to talk at the public hearing, but go right ahead.
Well, my only comment is, as much as I don't like to see taxes increase, I think we've done an excellent job of bringing in a budget that maintains services, improves several services, and doing it at a very minimal increase. The municipal budget's impact on the total tax increase is 17 cents. Well, our 7.17 of the 1 mil increase in the budget. So less than 20% of the budget increase, the tax increase, is attributable to the municipal budget, and I think that's remarkable.
In those areas where we did make some improvements in that, none of those were luxuries at all, but just in very needed areas.
Anyone else? No? All right, hearing none, I will take a vote on order 1898. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Order 1899, order approving a sewer use rate increase to fund the water pollution control facility of 25 cents per 100 cubic feet per quarter with a minimum metered charge per quarter of $59 $1,000.40, effective for all charges assessed by the town after July 1, 2018. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval?
Second.
Anything else?
Went to public hearing. Sewer customers have received notice.
And just again, for the record, even with this increase, our rate is the lowest in the area.
All right. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a vote on Order 1899. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 18100, order approving the water pollution control facility budget for FY 2018 to 2019 in the amount of $1,602,485 for operations and $160,000 for capital improvements, for a total of $1,762,485. Take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
All right, Sophie, anything?
Nothing new. This is exactly as it was presented to counselors. It represents no change in service level from the current services provided. It does represent a decrease in the amount put aside for reserves, the idea being that we'll be able to build those up with this rate increase and perhaps a subsequent rate increase next year.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, I will take a vote on Order 18100. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 18101, order approving the 5-year capital investment forecast 2019 to 2023 for the town and water pollution control facility. Take a motion, please.
Move approval? Second?
All right. Sophie, anything? No. All right. Everyone seen the 5-year capital investment and forecast? So any questions or comments? No? All right. Hearing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of 18101? Passes unanimously. Order 18102, order approving the 2018-2019 fee schedule to be effective July 1, 2018. Take a motion, please.
So moved?
Sophie?
So this fee schedule was presented to counselors a while ago. It went to public hearing. Very minor changes this year, mostly reflecting increases in minimum wage, so some changes with pool fees. And Nancy, the stickler that she is, also had recommended an increase in the advertising fee for the Orono Observer.
Great. Any questions or comments on the fee schedule? No, I think it's been pretty responsible. So I'll take a vote on Order 18-102. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Order 18103, order authorizing the town manager to expend up to $5,000 from the Downtown Transit-Oriented Tax Increment Financing District to construct a downtown parklet. Take a motion.
Motion.
And
Second?
right, Sophie.
So this item actually went to the Community Development Committee in May 24th. And the issue that we presented at that point was the idea that has been discussed, kind of nibbled around the edges for quite some time, about trying to create a welcoming community space downtown. So a place that you could take your sandwich and your drink and go sit down somewhere outside. And there had been some talk about creating a green space between Margaritas and Omland Yoga, the Roost, in that alley. Concerns were raised about blocking the traffic flow. So we kind of went back to the drawing board, and the idea that we came up with, along the lines of fail fast, fail cheap, was to create a temporary wooden structure that will fill in 3 of the parking spaces from the closest to the kiosk down to where the handicap parking lot currently, space currently exists. And it will be built up in the back with benches. So if you can imagine decking coming out to keep it as level with the sidewalk as possible. It's hard because the sidewalk's not exactly, level.
It'll be more level than the sidewalk.
Probably. And then benches along the back and tables that could also double as seating areas. We'll seat about 30 people. I'm not sure that 30 people would want to sit that close to each other, but and it's designed to give us the opportunity to see if it's a space that people want and would welcome. If it is, then we might consider doing another one on the other side, down closer to where the tavern is. But the idea, we have, it's going to be constructed out of cedar, so it will look nice, hopefully some window boxes, and actually some little cedar trees have been purchased to live in it, kind of in pots and cut up under it. So I have great hopes for this. People have been working away to try to get it so we can deploy it downtown by the beginning of July. So, given the reception from the Community Development Committee and the fact that everybody except for Councillor Perry was at that meeting and expressed a lot of support, I went forth and told people to go ahead and buy some materials. So if you vote this order down, we're just going to short Dave Mylan in the economic development budget. But
And Sophie, I think we also said that the handicap parking space would just move down. We wouldn't be losing that space.
so we went back with Rob Yerxa, who is our resident expert, and we actually decided to flip it around. So there will be a new space, but it's going to be on Mill Street. And they think that that will work a lot better.
And I'd just also like to comment that for this was sort of a very concise recap, but we did have a lengthy conversation about it where we really put staff through the paces with a lot of questions, such as the handicap accessibility issues. So I would really encourage people who are interested in learning more about this project to go to the agenda and minutes page and listen to that. It was May 24th, correct? Community Development Committee meeting. The audio file is on the website, so you can actually listen to our discussion and all the questions that we put Dave through at that meeting.
And if they look at the minutes, which have been approved, so they're uploaded on that same website, there are actual pictures of a conceptual design. I'm not going to tell you that what is built is exactly that, but it's pretty close.
Great. All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll take a vote on Order 18103. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Go forth and build us a parklet. Order 18104, order authorizing the town manager to execute the mutual aid agreement of organized fire departments for Penobscot County, which provides the legal framework through which the town of Orono Fire Department can give and receive mutual aid. Take a motion, please.
Motion.
All right. Sophie, you want to?
So we've briefly discussed this agreement. Mutual aid is a concept that has been alive and well in Penobscot County for a very long time. This agreement actually dates back to 2005, and the town of Orono is one of the few organized fire departments that is not a party to this agreement. Chief Lowe has reviewed the agreement. I have reviewed the agreement. It's pretty boilerplate. There is it provides the framework, so if we, for example, got called over to Brewer, we would be legally covered. Our insurance would say that that's part of the scope of our job. And when Brewer comes to us, it makes it very clear that Brewer is covering its own people and its own equipment, so if something happened here, the town of Orono isn't going to get a bill for a fire truck or medical expenses or anything like that. Is that enough? Do you want?
I just had a question. Sophie, how far can we be asked to go?
So the thing about mutual aid is that they can't demand that you go anywhere. Most of the time, the way it happens, it kind of slides kind of the county around, depending on where the issue is. So are we going to get called to the very highest reaches of Penobscot County? Probably not. We might get called up to Lincoln or Millinocket to stage at a fire station, but then others are going to fill in behind us. So oftentimes what you see is somebody going just a couple of towns over. This does not apply to our hazmat team or our emergency medical services, so it's just fire. The one that we really needed it to cover us for, quite honestly, it's Brewer and Glenburn are two that are parties to this that we like to call from and sometimes end up going to.
Anyone else have any other questions or comments? I had another question, but I forgot it, so we'll move right through it. All right, if no one else has anything else, I'll take a vote on Order 18104. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Now we'll go to the consent agenda. I will take a motion to move the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
All right. I will take a vote on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Yes.
The one thing I would just make a note of in the consent is that council just set the due date for the first half payment of taxes for Monday, October 1st.
Great. We had discussed pushing that out, so we did a little bit. Great. All right. Well, moving on to a discussion update on Orono operations for municipal solid waste disposal during the interim period until construction of the Fiberite facility in Hamden is complete. Sophie.
I had provided a brief email recap to counselors of where we were, and always a good idea with something like this to just redo it for the public. Several weeks ago, maybe even a couple of months at this point, council authorized me to enter into an alternative arrangement through the Municipal Review Committee to dispose of our solid waste at the PERC plant if that option became available. Currently, our waste during this interim period while we are waiting for Fiberite to be constructed is going to the Juniper Ridge landfill as part of a solid waste swap with Crossroads. So not changing the amount of tonnage going into Juniper Ridge, but it is going into Juniper Ridge. So with my hat as an MRC director, 2 weeks ago, I signed the agreement on behalf of MRC for the alternative arrangement with Waste Management, which cleared the exclusivity clause in the MRC's contract with Waste Management. Immediately following that, as in minutes, I also notified MRC of the town of Orono's intent to take advantage of the alternative, spend the additional $50 per ton to dispose of waste, and take it to the PERC plant under the contract that MRC had with PERC. Did that on a Thursday, gave a week's notice, thought we would start actually disposing or delivering to PERC on the 21st of June. The following Monday, I received notice, I received copy of a notice, so did every single counselor, I think, from the PERC plant, telling us that they would not accept our waste under the MRC contract that had been executed in January, that they considered that contract to be void. And so, barring another agreement, I have no method to dispose of waste at the PERC plant. MRC, right now, because we signed on to the Master Waste Supply Agreement, MRC has the control of where our waste goes. When they had an alternative arrangement, we could use that alternative arrangement, but barring an alternative arrangement, the only place that I have to send our trash at this point is JRL. So, at this point, you have authorized me, directed me to use a method of disposal that we do not legally have access to, and I wanted to inform council of that.
Question? Why did, I read both of those. I read the one that PERC sent out and I read your response. But I was confused, basically. Why did PERC decide not to accept the contract?
So, I am not privy to the inner workings of PERC. I can tell you what I have been told. I have been told that the contract that we inked in January, last Wednesday of January, that talked about interim deliveries during an interim period, so the period between April 1st, 2018 and when the Fiberite facility was commercially operational. PERC has interpreted the contract to say that we did not provide timely notice and therefore the contract is void. When I read the contract, Cheryl, I can't see that there was any requirement that we provide notice by any certain time. And MRC provided notice the same day that it became viable for them to utilize the service. So that's what I know, and I really wouldn't want to try to speak on behalf of PERC.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I'm extremely disappointed that this didn't work out. We are a community who, were willing to pay more money to make sure that we did not landfill our trash. And I think that's in line with sort of the environmental focus of a lot of members of our community. And it's incredibly disappointing that that some of the players involved in this process were not willing to allow us to give them more money so that we could do what we believe is the ethical thing with the disposal of our municipal waste.
Yeah.
So this is a dead issue at this point. There's no chance of an agreement being, any other agreement being negotiated with PERC?
When you use terms like never and any, that is difficult. I can tell you that in my experience during my time on the MRC board, I have found that any time MRC and PERC try to negotiate contracts, come up with points that they agree on, and then try to solidify that in contract language, it is both lengthy and expensive. There were 2 towns that came forward wanting to use this option, Blue Hill, Surrey, which is one town, and Orono. So I would have difficulty seeing the MRC board choosing to expend some very finite resources at this point in time to negotiate further, and also knowing that it probably would be August before we had anything. I mean, that January contract took such a long time to get September 30th.
Anybody else?
Well, everything's gonna be going to Juniper Ridge, starting yesterday or
Well,
last week?
everything has been,
Right.
Yep.
Okay, until September 30th.
yes.
And if Fiberite's not up and running by September 30th?
Then we're gonna have a lot, honestly, Cheryl, we would have a lot bigger problem than where our waste goes, one town's waste goes. That would create havoc with Fiberite investors, and there is an awful lot of pressure on Fiberite to make sure that it is operational and
facility is
working on
running.
the 30th.
Okay, thanks, Sophie.
In case that happens.
The contingency plan would be to continue doing what we're doing,
Yeah.
which is also not very palatable for the MRC. So there's an awful lot of pressure being put on construction right now.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to say I appreciate the effort that our manager went through.
Working with the MRC to provide what we hoped was going to be a reasonable option, and it's just disappointing that through circumstances beyond our control, that's not going to work out.
And we appreciate that the MRC went through the steps when only 2 towns out of, I don't know how many, 100 and something, that they actually looked into our request, so I appreciate that. All right, anyone else have anything else on this topic? All right, then we'll move on to the discussion of the review of interim RSU 26 board candidates and recommendations for appointment at July 9th, 2018 council meeting. And so we won't be moving anything tonight. We'll just be talking about a name that we could put into a order. So,
I think we had 3, so, given the timeline of this whole thing, I was really surprised at the fact that we had 3 strong candidates in their own ways. I thought I was very impressed with that. I would recommend Jeff Wingard as a candidate, based on his experience with, previously on school board, his life as an educator, even his, on his resume, talking about working the police force, and also his familiarity with the 5-year strategic plan that's currently developed and in place, actually, working towards. And also, he talked a lot about his, he has current knowledge of curriculum, but also has a lot of interest in that, as well as, I love the fact that he drew such a great connection to the power of great schools with developing a strong community. And so in my mind, he rose to the top of this great pool of 3 candidates.
I was thinking also the same thing with Jeff, and I really liked how he kind of has a pulse on the school system as well. He's got kids in, I don't think he's got anyone in ASA now. I think Sam just went up to 6th grade, but he's had kids in all 3 schools for a really long time. And he's a great teacher, and he's very, he seems like he would be a good colleague that Brian was looking for as well on the school board. So I'd like to go with Jeff too.
I agree. I liked Jeff. I thought Judy Treadwell and Judy Sullivan brought some interesting credentials and interesting viewpoints to the RSU. But I felt that Jeff stood out a little bit in my mind as to where the RSU board was going, and how we related, as everyone has already said. So
I think if we think about continuity during this interim period of time, Jeff certainly provides that. I actually serve on the facilities committee with him. I know that he's been a real contributing member there. So in that very important aspect of schoolwork, he's right up to date. He knows what's going on. I also liked his interest in curriculum and his background in curriculum. I thought very time-demanding jobs.
I was impressed by all three of the candidates. I think that all three have given so much to the community already in various ways. Judy Treadwell's service teaching for the town of Orono for so many years, and her engagement still in the school community and the issues involved in that community are impressive. Judy Sullivan, I'll say, for the sort of brief overlap of time on council with Judy and I, nary an issue did we agree on. However, she is definitely a person who prods you to really put your money where your mouth is in terms of what your opinion on something is. She makes you articulate what it is that you are trying to say, and if it doesn't hold water, it doesn't hold water, and she does force you to be accountable in the way that she discusses things, and I think that is a valuable contribution to any board.
And see all perspectives, too.
And see
She
all
was great at
perspectives
that,
as
yes.
well. Yes. I did find myself thinking that Jeff would probably be the most appropriate candidate out of three very, very qualified candidates. Mainly for me because I did like a lot of his answers. I'll echo a lot of the things that folks have already said, but I did also like that he has experience in many different areas that would intersect in this position. He is a teacher. He has served on this board before. He is a parent of children in the school system. And so to me, his ability, and the facilities committee as well, so his ability to see all of the different angles of this role, I think would be valuable, make him a valuable colleague.
Anyone else have anything?
I appreciated that we had three fine candidates. I was glad that that the candidates mentioned so many things that we are concerned about with our school. So there were specific mentions of facilities and the plans for facilities and for STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math in our school. I wished someone had mentioned STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, but I was pleased how focused they were on what it takes to be a good community to support the school, and that they were all willing to step in and be there for our community. I was pleased to hear the mention of this being a multi-generational community, and we had two of the candidates mentioned that because they didn't have children in the schools, that they would represent something that's different on the present board. And I guess I've been thinking about that. I'm really glad they brought that up. And yet I also move with the idea that Jeff, because of all of his experience, would be someone that would be bring wisdom and a different perspective to the board. Not that he does have kids, and everyone else on the board right now has kids, but I thought that he had a lot to offer, and I was impressed with his presentation.
No, I thought that was a great point too, about the not necessarily having kids being a requirement to be on there, but also I would never say that because you have kids you're not qualified either. You know what I mean? It's like it goes. I think we have some great professionals on this board now that are incredibly committed to that, and I think all three candidates would be equally committed to that too, despite that thing.
Yeah, and just to add, looking at my notes, all of them did talk about the facilities and the need to review that and decide what to do with those. I also think they all discussed it, and Judy in particular discussed the balance that we need to have with good schools, but being able to pay for them, and I think that's forefront in all of the candidates and probably in the board's minds at this point too. And the last thing was population. They're very concerned about whether we've got a school that's going to grow, or are we, when we look at facilities, are we going to grow the school, so we need bigger facilities, or are we going to work with the facilities we have? So I thought those were all interesting points that they all brought up, and I think Jeff echoed a lot of the other points that Judy made.
One last thing for me, maybe one last We'll see if it's last. Since this is a topic now with the school board and the schools and, you know, overlapping with the budgets as well, I think it's important, and some of the discussion was of sort of getting to see how this is all made, how this is all created. We just went through our process with the budget. We had a few people, you know, come regularly to our meetings. By golly, I mean, I'm sure the school board would love to have greater attendance at their meetings. You know, I don't mean to make any assumptions, Brian, but I think it's true. I mean, just as we'd all love to see more people here. And when we talk about the rising taxes, you know, and the increase in budgets, we need to remember where that's coming from in many, many ways, and that's Augusta. And I think people have, you know, revenue sharing has been cut, you know, school funding has been cut on a state level. And I think, you know, we still have rights to talk to our representatives in Augusta as well. And I would encourage people who are concerned to really look at that issue and speak out about that. And if they have an opinion, you know, by golly, make it heard. So.
I guess the one more comment that was mentioned among those that we interviewed was that I was very pleased that Judy Treadwell mentioned her how impressed she was with the middle school students and their gun safety initiative, and the high school students also participated in a gun safety walkout, and I was pleased that she mentioned that, and I would encourage her to continue to make a statement about that we as a community need support from members of the community to talk about how we're going to address these very thorny issues that are happening all over the country. And gun safety is something that does need to be addressed by our community. And so even if the people who we interviewed tonight don't get chosen by us to be on the school board, that they each had important things to offer.
So would council be comfortable with recommending Jeff Wingard as the interim director? Okay. Does that give you enough to go on, sir? All right. So now we're moving on to public comments. Do we have any public comments this evening? No? Stuart? No?
Comments, but not public.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll move right along to adjournment. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Have a good evening.
Cindy, can I just remind council, no more meetings this week, no meetings next week? So the 9th.
Don't play with my emotions, Sophie.
The 9th is the next time. However, on the 9th, one of the items that you will see is calling a public hearing for September for the Vernal Pools Special Area Management Plan Ordinance Adoption. I figured we didn't have to have a meeting, just so you could tell me that you support something that we've talked about.
And the 9th is a regular meeting, and monthly meeting at 7 o'clock.
It is. Please be prepared. You might want to bring a snack. That tends to be a fairly long meeting because there will be orders around year-end financial pieces, what you want to do with some reserve accounts, stuff like that. And your department heads have planned for purchases through all the spring, and so they've got bids that will be expiring. So this is also a day that you tend to do a lot of approvals.
What was the date on that again?
July 9th.
No, we're still taping. Let the record show we are capable of finishing a meeting in 40 minutes, by the way.